If you know my channel, you'll know that my videos are based on freehand drawing directly in ink. In the last couple of years, I can remember one other pencil drawing that I did, but it was a fairly simplified drawing. I thought, why not draw this cottage using pencil and see just what the difference it is to switch to pencil, having done hundreds and hundreds of ink drawings since I last drew in pencil. I'm using a 2B pencil and I'm wanting to do a fairly heavy drawing in that I want to capture with the pencil, with pencil strokes, the mid values across the front of this backlit cottage. So there's going to be a lot of graphite on the paper, and my challenge is to not get lost in it. But I am looking forward to the opportunity of producing value in a much more nuanced way with the pencil than it is with a multi-liner pen. At least I'm hoping it's going to be a more straightforward thing to do. It suddenly occurred to me that, hey, I'm drawing with pencil, I can do a pencil underdrawing, or if you like, an outline of this scene. And so that's what I'm starting with at this point. So the challenge is not to get lost in the mid values with this, because there's going to be a lot of values that are very similar across the center. Now, I'm afraid once I finished the outline, I turned the camera off and then I came back to it and forgot to turn the camera back on for the first 5 minutes. So we're about to have a bit of a time jump, and there we are. But at this stage, basically, I'm just now starting to find some lines for the main elements of the front. And so I'm still thinking big picture at this point. I don't want to rush to do the hatching just yet. It would have been lovely if I'd had a front lit scene, because I think that would have worked really nicely with this simple form. But sometimes it's good not to oversimplify what our reference actually is, and to go with the more challenging scenario that we have here of a backlit scene, and where we really want to capture the dramatic lighting. But with the bricks, I also want to capture the difference between the darker bricks, but also the shaded decorative lintels we have above the windows and the door. So there's a few relative values there I need to play with. And you'll notice I'm holding my pen some way back, quite some way back. I find when I draw with pencil, I do hold the pencil further back from the end than I do with pens. You'll also notice that I sharpen it with a box cutter to a very long point. I find that gives me a lot more use of graphite, of lead, before I need to sharpen it again. And as it goes down, I can rotate it to find a sharp edge. I also have two of these pencils that are pretty much identical in length, that are both sharpened to the same point, so that as soon as this pencil gets just a bit blunt all over, I can just switch pencils. Or if I suddenly think I need a nice sharp edge for a line, I'll put this one down and get the other one and then swap back. It's great not to lose momentum when we start to draw by having to change pencils. So now I start my first playing round with value, and I'm doing fairly simple hatching with the pencil and really enjoying the smooth feel of the graphite over the paper. However, I do become reacquainted with the challenge of drawing with pencil, of smudging, of trying to keep nice clear lines or nice clear transitions in value without smudging. And it's not as simple as just having a bit of paper under your hand. It's also controlling the marks that we put on the paper to keep some distinctiveness of the marks. I still want this to look drawn. I don't want it to look as though the value has been smeared on or rubbed on. I'm wanting to have the lines as part of the marks, not just the values. I'm a little uncertain how dark to go, but I wanted the back left section, the trees, to be quite dark so that they'll help push the house forward, help make the house stand out despite the fact that it's all shaded on the front, by going much darker behind the shaded front and creating that silhouette. We go a long way to having the darker value, the mid value on the front, but also not losing clarity. Now, this rose bush that we have on the right hand side is another opportunity to introduce some dark values. And I'm thinking of the facade of the cottages being framed between these two dark foliage values that we get of the leaves of the rose bush and the trees on the other side. I don't want to go too dark though. Now, with these paling fences, not so much on this one, but if you look at the one round the front of the house, you'll notice I haven't been exact in lining up all my marks. I haven't tried to draw all of the well, I guess they're pickets, it's a picket fence, all of the pickets one by one as separate events. It's extremely hard to do that accurately and have it look right, and certainly time consuming as well. So I've tried to create a style of drawing them so that I'm capturing the effect of the pickets, not the exactness. And that's largely done with drawing the negative space, with drawing shadows or shadowed areas that we see between the pickets. The one thing I do want to do is to try and keep the sense of foreshortening, that the pickets further away are more like just lines very close together, but when they're straight in front of us, we can actually see the whole picket. Now, again, I wanted to suggest the brickwork so that it was clear this was a brick cottage and it's not a rendered one. But I don't want to get bogged down drawing all of the bricks. So I just need to draw enough. I started by locating the eye level, which in this scene was where there was a coursework line between two rows that was horizontal across the whole scene. And I did put a mark on my reference when I found it. I'm doing the same thing now for that chimney. And in a minute, I'll start doing some adjustments. I'll start to go a bit darker in some places. I was concerned that the mid value on the fence was too similar to the mid value on the brick wall behind it. And so in a moment, I'll darken the brick wall to create more contrast. I can't remove the pencil from the, well, actually, I suppose I could, couldn't I? I'm still used to the fact that with pen, once you've put a mark there, it stays there. But I did decide straight away that I was going to try and not use an eraser at all if I could. I've spent all this time in some ways trying to learn a method of drawing that copes with drawing directly in ink and not every line or mark being perfect, and learning to be able to work that into the overall drawing. So I thought I still want to try and use that skill, that approach, that way of thinking, but still just using graphite. Just because we can erase doesn't mean we have to. In fact, I would say that it's going to be really good for anyone's drawing development who draws fundamentally in pencil to still minimize the use of an eraser, unless you're actually using the eraser to create light values, very light values, against darker ones, in which case you're using the eraser as a drawing instrument, but not to become overly dependent on erasing lots of lines all the time. If we keep doing that, we're not pushed to actually develop the skill to work at getting the lines in the right place the first time. There's nothing like drawing directly in ink to make you learn to observe more carefully and to visualize what's going to go on the paper just before it goes on, and to, in a sense, double check what you've just drawn in your imagination against the reference before you actually release the ink. Again, going nice and dark with this, it's going to be a nice contrast with that against the white value of the brick wall that's above it, that side wall. But also it's going to join up with the dark value I haven't done yet of the shadow on the roadway. or the pathway. This is a very old house. From memory, it's the 1850s, I think, in a small Tasmanian town. So you'll notice the line direction for the shadows on the ground is very different to the line direction for the shade on the front of the cottage and on the fences. And that's going to help make it look different. But also, this is actually going to be a darker shadow, even though it's on a lighter surface. Shadow is darker than shade. I have a video on that. That's really interesting if it's not a difference that you're aware of. But being aware of it, it's easier to see that, yes, the shadow on the ground is darker in value. It's also cooler than shade. Shadow is cooler than shade. So if you're working with colour, then that's another consideration. Now, I'm wanting to go dark again as a contrast to all the mid values, but also to connect with the darker values that I do have on the front of the house. I can't go too dark in those windows or in the doorway because then they will come forward too much. I need to keep them sitting backwards. But just continual adjustment of my values at this point, because we can't really appreciate values until we have the other values drawn around it. So it's good not to try and do the final values too quickly, but rather to adjust all the values as final values at the one time in kind of a rotating way, making sure that we stop it and just look back at the effect that we've created and don't just keep putting lines on over and over again, but that we see what the effect that we've done is. What do you think? I'll post this photo on my channel community page, so if you'd like to have a go drawing it either in pencil or in ink, go right ahead. It's a nice little subject and you could do as much detail or simplify it a bit if you'd rather draw it in less time. But this probably took about 40 minutes to do all up. And now I'm just darkening the brick wall so that those white concreted lintels over the tops stand out a little bit more, but still have a shaded value. And this is it. What do you think? G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. Why not give it a go? And if you normally draw in pen too, why not have a go drawing in pencil? I really enjoyed the qualities of graphite. The only thing I really missed about my pen was the no smudging. However, it was a lot of fun, so why not give it a go? I'll see you next time. Bye.